relatives and I guess you would be a great
Welcome,
policeman.
everyone. Sorry. Welcome to this month's Kansas History Snapshot presentation. Today we have Joe Boley, and he's presenting Old Time Town Band Boys. So I'll turn it over to him.
Well, thank you for coming out, and thank you for inviting me to do this little session. This is strictly kind of a characteristic band boy that was grown up during the golden age of the old-time town bands. And I'll be hitting on a few, hopefully, historical notes, maybe some things around town that might jar your memory just a little bit. What was 1872? Stepped off the train down here to a little town called Great Bend. That's because of the big curve in the Arkansas River, so named. And as I looked down across the Arkansas River Valley, I saw that flat prairie and all that short grass. And I figured if I was going to be a farmer, I could plow plumb to the horizon and not hit a rock or have to carry out a tree stump. But I weren't going to be no farmer. I wanted to learn to play my slide horn. So someday I could join one of them professional touring bands like Ennis or Gilmore or even John Phillips Sousa. And if I got real good on my horn, I could probably be a band director and make me some money. Now you see, I hear that engineer that drives that train down that track, he only gets a little over $100 a month. And them candy dancers that are laying that track on out to Pawnee Rock out there, they only gets 25 cents a day. That's awful hard work. Well, if I was a band director in Great Bend, I could get in my buggy and go over to a couple of other surrounding towns and be their band director, and I could probably make as much as over $200 a month. Now, 1877, thereabouts, the 4th of July celebration was always a county-wide celebration. And it was being held over at Ellenwood, there south of town in the river on what they call Picnic Island. Well, the boys in Ellenwood had them a band. And the boys from Great Bend, they figured, we can sure have a band too. So Fred Miller and Creek Rafton, they got together and rounded up some of the boys and some old horns. And we had us a band, but we had no band director. They went down south of Rattlesnake Creek, down there in the Zion Valley, found a fellow by the name of Billy James Bickerton. He was a Mormon that had come in there to immigrate, but he knew how to play a horn, and we figured he could direct the band part. And sure enough, he did. Well, it was about 1878. D.N. Heiser was around town, and he was one of these landman fellows for the government. He'd bring the settlers out, hope they'd become farmers, buy some land cheap after a while. And he ran what was called an excursion train. Well, old D.N. Heiser took us over to Hutchinson, us band boys, loaded us up, and we rode on that train all the way back, playing for the car, playing car and the dining car and giving a little concerts here and there. Worked out real neat. But it had been raining cats and dogs for about a week and washed out some of the track over there on the east side of Ellenwood. Well, we'd finished playing our little concerts and went back to the baggage car. Because back in the baggage car where we had our horns, there was a phrenologist. Now, a phrenologist is one of those pseudo-doctor fellows that likes to read the bumps on your head. He was reading the bumps on some of the boys' heads to see if there's going to be a drugstore man or see if there's going to be an engineer or maybe a farmer. Anyway, they was going to find out what they was going to be in future life. Well, about that time, that train ditched in an open space of the court. We had bodies of flip-flopping all over the car. We had baggage, we had horn cases, the whole ball of wax was just flopping everywhere. Well, luckily, none of us got hurt. And after several hearings, the railroad people said it was their fault because their train agent hadn't gone out and checked the track with a lantern like you're supposed to do in a rainstorm. Instead, he went to lunch. So they figured it was their fault. They bought us $300 worth of brand new horns. We were so proud. We even had our names listed in the paper. Had our names and what we played. That worked out really, really fine. Now back in those days, we weren't shy about helping each other out, us band boys. And the harvest time, the farmers couldn't come to town to hear the concerts. They were busy on the farm, cutting wheat and whatnot, so we would take the concert out to them. We'd load up in a wagon, and we'd go out and play a farmhouse. We'd pull up in the yard and play some pretty music for those fellows. Most of them really liked it. Now, we were short a couple of horn players. So we goes over to Ellenwood and asks a couple of those boys to come along with us. Well, you know what they got in Ellenwood. They got that there brewery. A couple of boys brought some of that liquid white lightning. Well, by the time we got to about the third farmhouse, we was feeling no pain, and we were plastered and blasting those notes were just falling on the deck of that wagon, just bursting apart. And we pulled into this one farmyard with all that collaboration going on, and we abruptly spoiled the sleep of one of the farm fellows. Well, he took umbrage with what we was doing with that collaboration. He came out the screen door with one hand on his drawers and the other hand with a pistol revolver. It looked like the barrel was about a yard long. Well, we started crying and hiding behind our horns and our music stand because we didn't want to meet our maker that night, except for old Charlie back there playing the Kansas one-step on his tuba. He was not nary hitting one note right. It was all blasted, and he felt that pistol barrel right up by his nose. Our tears turned to tears of joy, because we knew we weren't going to meet our maker that night. It was going to be old Charlie. Well, Charlie learned that when he goes to town and walking that sidewalk, and there's a farmer coming towards him, he's going to take the other side of the street because he felt like, oh, going to have trouble here. So that's kind of a few of the little incidences that we took part in. The town realized that we was very important because we played for many different kinds of occasions. We discoursed music for all sorts of festivals and celebrations. We even played for political conventions and meetings, and we also went out here to Dalzell's Grove, played, we played reunions out there. That's out, if you don't know, that's east of Cheyenne Flats out there. And we had a glorious time doing that. We also played for street fairs, for tag sales that were going on downtown, any consortment of activities that were happening, even the opening of buildings. We played for the city auditorium when they opened. We played out at Lake Barton when it opened up. We played for the creamery that opened up down by the railroad tracks, and the Dundee sugar beet factory. We played for the opening of that. So we were used quite a bit. We realized after a while that we were going to wind up playing concerts, of course, down at Lafayette Square. That's where the courthouse was at. And the courthouse had a basement, and many a time we played masquerade balls, and many times we played over at the Morrison Hotel and even up in the Woodman Hall. And of course, those concerts and parades, if there was ever, oh, the most glorious parade, of course, was the 4th of July. Unless it rained, unless I didn't have 50 cents to buy a package of firecrackers and a little bit of lemonade. And if we had too many of those pot-bellied, long-winded politicians come in wanting to read the Declaration of Independence all the way from the first word to the last, and then try to tell us how they was going to fix the government. You realize in those days, we not only had to put up with the Republicans and the Democrats, we had the Fusionist Party, we had the Anti-Fusionist Party, we had the Populist Party, we had the Anti-Populist Party, we had the Liberal Party, we had the Anti-Liberal Party, we even had a Prohibitionist Party, Anti-Prohibitionist, and even had an anarchist one time. Well, he started up on the bandshell spouting off about our Uncle Sam, and the farmers didn't like that. They jerked him off that bandstand, tossed him across the audience, and he wound up with a broken wrist. Well, he proclaimed his misery to Judge Bannon, and Judge Bannon said, young man, you probably better get out of town on the next rail or you're going to slide out of here all tarred and feathered. And he left town. course, we set up our bandstand and speaker stand when we had a political gathering. We set that up across the north side of the park, the Lafayette Park, because that was just opposite where the saloons were at. And you guys get, politicians get too long-winded and parched throats, and we get parched throats listening to them. We can go over there for a little libation and kind of grease ourselves up a little bit and be ready for the next concert that time. So yes, the 4th of July, the usual things were found in the 4th of July parade. All the clubs downtown, the civic organizations, fraternities, where they all had their flags and their banners. And here come the guests, the bands that were invited from out of town. They were going to play little concerts on the street corners, but they could not play any of that degradational, devil, trashy music called jazz. They would get their pay docked if they found out that they were playing any of that. They didn't allow that in our town. And it was also a good time to have the parade. I need to back up a minute because if the whole 4th of July come on Sunday, we couldn't have a celebration because we had them there blue laws. Well, we got the parade coming along with the patriotic floats. Well, we have the floats from other people, the church organizations, and we have farm machinery has to come by. Oh, the baseball boys, they come by on their hay rack, and oh, there were all kinds of cheers for them. Them boys from Seward that come out to play. They kind of got a lot of jeers, so we didn't cheer them on very well. Then, of course, the unusual would happen, too. But once in a while, we would have the balloon ascension daredevils. They'd be coming down the street with their wagon, with their balloon and their basket all on, trailing behind. It's quite a sight, really. And then the fellows would come by in them tights. It looked like Grandpa's drawers without the trap doors. The ladies, they kind of take a little peek once in a while. You can see them behind the fan. They risk one eye anyway to look at them when the fellows coming down. That was always glorious. And then we had little contests for the children because they dress their animals up and they decorate their tricycles and bicycles. We were going to have races. We had horse races. Oh yes, and we had, of course, the baseball game. And the consortment of activities like that were always joyously accepted by everybody and kept them busy all day long. It was great. Horseshoe contest, all that sort of business went on. The balloon ascension, though, now that was quite a sight. That was held just a couple of blocks from downtown Lafayette Square. And the fellows would get them all heated up in an empty pasture over there, and they'd start to go up. That was pretty neat. Oh, everybody was doing, that was great. And pretty soon you see this little teeny speck over there fall out of the basket. Oh my goodness. And then pretty soon the parachute would open up and they would float down to the cheers of the crowd. They would yell and cheer and hoorah for the daredevils. That was quite a sight. I guess the most spectacular parade, though, that we would participate in, or sort of participated in, I should say, was the circus parade. When the circus come to town, they would unload down by the railroad tracks at the train depot because they were going to set their big tent and all their facilities up just across the street there in Pritchard pasture. And they would come downtown for a parade then. It would be the elephants and the giraffes, things we'd never seen before. Caged animals would come by, the jugglers and the clowns, and then here come the trapeze artists with all these feathers and those tights on. Well, us gentlemen, man, we kind of take a peek once in a while. We could risk one eye anyway. They was quite a sight. But at the end of the parade, here come this big wagon called the band wagon with the band sitting on top. Oh my heavens, they were fancy. They'd have red and gold and silver and purple, all kinds of colors, and these big feathers in their cap. Well, they're kind of sissified to us. We'll just ask them about a battle of the bands. Sure enough, we got our band together down at the square. They come back down, they had some free time, and we played with each other, and we played against each other, and we was worn out, and pretty soon we found out that we didn't have the best band in the land, like that newspaper editor had told us some time back. Well, the businessmen, they saw the value of the band as far as discoursing sweet music and airs for advertising. Well, that's where we come across the booster trips. we had the booster band. We'd go over to a little town over here, let's say we might go to Albert, and we would beat the drum for Great Bend and blow our horns for Great Bend. And meanwhile, the businessmen were out handing out little favors and little advertisements and gifts for the kids and candy for the kids and talking to the town folk. Come on over to Great Bend and shop in the heart of the Golden Belt. Well, sure enough, Saturday night was the best night for the concert, especially for the farmers, because they came in town to visit and also buy their supplies for the next week. The ladies, they would be over the grocery store buying what they needed to fix for the farm boys the next week. And they'd also go to the millinery shop next door and find out what the best fashions were going on in Kansas City. And then, of course, they had to go down to that new beauty shop and get their hair all gussied up for the revival meeting Sunday night. But I think they really wanted to go down and catch up on all the gossip going on in town. The men folk, they'd be down at the elevator, getting their feed and their seeds, and maybe over to the lumber yard and picking up some lumber they was going to build a barn and so forth. Or they'd be downtown sitting on their puffer machines or sitting in their buggies and bragging about their wheat crop and what the government was trying to do with the land and their farming ideas, and bragging about their new tractor they probably purchased. The children, they'd be running around the bleachers there in front of the bandstand and playing tag and climbing around and doing all sorts of consortments of all sorts. I had a lady tell me one time, she said that we went over to Dillon's right across the street from the park, and we bought some lunch meat and some bread and got our fixings together for a noon lunch. Went over there on the benches and sat down and started eating. And here come these boys scuffing up dirt and rocks and throwing stuff at each other. I often wondered if I married one of those boys. Now the teenage boys that come to town, if they had a date, they was probably over under the courtyard steps, probably spooning. Little boys and girls and brothers and sisters probably teasing a little bit about that. And Grandpa would be over pitching horseshoes, and somebody else would be playing baseball in the other corner of the park. The teenage boys that didn't have a date, they were just standing on the corner watching all the girls go by. Standing on the corner and watching all the girls. That sounds pretty nicky. I might have to make a tune out of that. Well, it was time for the concert. Fresh mowed grass, the new mown hay across the street in the pasture. Those odors are, I'm sorry, that odor is the liver stable across the street there. Have to forgive us for that. Old man Taylor says he's going to move out northwest of town, and we won't have to put up with that smell anymore. But we hope anyway. The music we was going to play, we played marches and overtures and entertained the crowd quite well with descriptive pieces and characteristic pieces. And sometimes we would have a soloist or an ensemble come in and play with the band. We shared the band stage with everybody. Pearl Tilley, he was a string man. He would come in with some of the string players and we'd play with them. And Carl Maybach. Carl Maybach was the dance instructor in town and musician. He'd bring his dancers over sometimes and we'd play. The only trouble is, when he brought them Hawaiian dancers over, the cornet players always got lost because they were trying to watch that weaving back and forth with those grass skirts. They went to Maxine Riddle would come do her whistling solo. We had quite a group there. That was pretty fun. We found out that the bands were so popular because of John Philip Sousa and others names at that time that went around doing concerts out in the park. There would be hundreds, sometimes thousands of people would come out. That was their main entertainment. In fact, everybody wanted to be in a band, but not everybody could be a musician in the band. So we had a kazoo band. Many places put together kazoo bands. And they had horns that looked like the regular horn, but it was really a kazoo. They would have parades, even have contests. It was quite an affair at that time. Everybody wanted to be in a band. Well, on the horizon, there are events and social changes happening, it's going to change the popularity of the town band. You see, we became more mobile, became more sophisticated. You could drive to Hutchinson for a shopping event and spend most of the day on a shopping spree, I guess is what you would call it. Then you could go to Grandma's house for chicken dinner and make it back for the evening revival meeting in one day. Or you could put on a record machine, recording machine, and put this piece of black stuff on there and put the needle on it, and you could listen to a pretty good orchestra. Or you could tune in the radio to Lavelle's Band of America and find out again, we did not have the best band in the land. Well, those days caused many differences in our band programs that we had. Instrument manufacturers, they found a new place to sell their horns. That was to the school kids. Because the colleges were turning out trained band directors. Not like the old time boys that knew how to handle the men, knew how to handle the boys in the band, but knew nothing about the technicalities of blowing or playing a horn. Much like Pat Grady over there at Emporium. To learn the rhythm, he would stand behind you with his baton stick and tap you on the head until you got it right. Well, Frederick Reisner, he would yell to the band boys in the end of the cornet section and say, you boys tomorrow need to bring a shovel and dig that dirt out of your ears. You seem to be deaf playing that dirt horn. And then there was old Domingo Scotty. He really knew how to handle the boys, and he really knew how to write music. But like he would say to Loyal Comark, little guy playing clarinet, you played the wrong note back there, now the next time you get there, play it right. That's how they tried to do that. Didn't always work though. Well, also the fellows during the war, they were going off to the factories in the big cities, and they was working there, and the farm boys, they had to raise a lot of crops, to keep the food basket going while there was that war. So the adults kind of phased out of being in the town band, and it was taken over more by the school children and the high schoolers that were learning how to play the horns because the colleges were training people to do that. So that's pretty much how that works. So the bands soon kind of disappeared a little bit, but we're proud to say that here in Great Bend, we have been able to say that we've had a town band, or city band, or if you want to call it municipal band, since 1875 when Billy James Bickerton came in. He was here a while, but that train wreck steered him into going back down to the Zion Valley, and he helped establish the town of St. John, named after Governor John St. John at that time. So the next time you hear a city band or municipal band, or what we call a town band, just remember these old-time professors and the old-time band boys that did all that work in the golden age of the town band, and that's why you still can hear a town band today. Thank you. Unfortunately, many names have been forgotten and lost, like our names someday will disappear. And the names of the towns that had bands will be unknown. So that's why at times I like to kind of keep that list. Not a complete list, but at least a list. You would have around here Hoisington All-Girl Band, Susank, Claflin, Lions, Pawnee Rock with the KKK Band, Larned, Otis, West Lutheran Band of Albert, Tipton Family Band. Family bands were quite popular. If you had 4, 5, 6 kids in the family, they all played a string instrument or played a horn, and that's part of the band. Now, Tipton Family Band. I just got to do a little brief bio of some of these. The Tipton Band would load up and go to Bison to play in their city park. And there was a bandstand in that park. It was octagonal in shape with a peaked roof. That bandstand is on the other side of the junkyard on 281 east of the highway. If you go on the highway and look to the east through that grove of trees, you'll see a bandstand. It'll look like a building, it'll look round with a peaked roof on it. If you go down the JUCO road, going back to 281, you look over to the right, and it's a little clearer there, but past those junkyard dogs over there, and a few of the trees, you can see that bandstand over there. There was a Button family bought that and shipped it over here when they was going to turn that little area into, some of you may remember, a recreation area with go-karts and picnic tables and things like that. But that didn't last too long. But that bandstand is over there. St. John, Perrington All-Girl Band. Perrington was invited and wrote a contract, but I never could find out why they didn't go. They were invited in 1904 for Kansas Day at St. Louis at the World's Fair. It was celebrating the exposition of Lewis and Clark. But I never could find them on the program. But they had an all-girl band, was quite popular, did a lot of playing. Downs All-Girl Band is claims to have had the first all-girl band in Kansas, 1870-something. Hillsboro Dutch Band, Marquette, Emporia Grady Band, the Pat Grady, very popular. They were invited to the American Legion, National American Legion Convention in Kansas City. I don't know if it was his second or third year as band director because he was there quite a while. They got one of those newfangled elevators, and somehow he got caught and was killed. Marshall Band of Topeka, there were railroad yard bands, shop bands that had contests with each other. Anthony Military Band, Sterling Bulletin Newspaper Band, McPherson Crab Family Band, McPherson KKK Band, the BBB Boys Carnival Band at Kingsley, little town of Frederick. It's still on the map, but there's nothing there. They had a band that's off of Highway 4 up there in the north part of Barton County. Epperson Ladies Band played at the very first, 1886, very first organized Greyhound coursing event held anywhere. And that was held out at Cheyenne Bottoms. I've got another talk on that. But they were the guest band to celebrate that Greyhound coursing event at Cheyenne Bottoms. Pratt Indian Chiefs Band, they went to, now I lost the president, that visited Hutchinson out west of town. They got a monument out there. Oh, God, who was it now?
Harding, wasn't it?
Who?
Harding?
Harding, right. William Harding was there. And they invited different bands to come in. And even our Kiwanis Club was invited to sell coffee and donuts, but they didn't go do that. But the Pratt family, the Pratt Indian Chiefs Band and the Dorrance Band were there. Burdick, Kansas, over by Salina, east, kind of southeast of Salina over there. They were a cowboy band. They were dressed up in, it's like the Pratt Indian Chiefs, they dressed up in Indian chief outfits. And the Burdick Cowboy Band, they dressed up like cowboys. And the Almonds, to only name a few. And a few of our directors with a very short bio. Billy James Bickerton, yep, he went south and helped discover St. John down there. He was a Mormon that took off up in Pennsylvania. He left the other Mormons, didn't like what they were doing, come down, stood on the knoll down by the Zion Valley and proclaimed that as Mormon territory. And there was a big write-up by on his grave, there's a big tablet on his grave that tells all this stuff about Billy James Bickerton. Elmer Epperson was one of the fine band directors in the early days. He committed suicide in the Allen House across from the Methodist Church. That's the old Allen House, the Allen drugstore downtown. Frederick Reasoner, C.W. Price had the first band in a high school in Great Bend, but it didn't last because they had too many activities. And That sounds familiar. Of course, Domingo Scotty, we've got a lot of information on him. And Wilbur Sherrard, who really started the high school band program as we see fit to make it go along each year successfully as it has been. He did not like jazz, but he liked one tune, Alexander's Ragtime Band. I had a boy that was in the band, a fellow that was in the band, Kopke, Bob Kopke. He was all set to play with Glenn Miller, except he got called to the Army. He said, there's 4 or 5, 6 of us fellows that were really like jazz, and we'd get off on our own and do it someplace. And the Sherrard didn't like it. So he said, when we get to the chorus of Alexander's Ragtime Band, let's all stand up and we'll just jam away and ad lib and play and play and play. And he did. He said, out. Sent him to the study hall. After about a week, he found out they were the top players, and he asked them to come back into the band. But that's the way it was in those days with a lot of these fellows. Some of them didn't even want saxophones in their band, because that was the music of the devil down there in the red light district, playing in all those clubs. Most of their tenure were 1 to 2 years. Some were 7 or 8 years. Domingo was about 13 years. Wilbur Sherrard came in 37, 38. He went about 15 years. Most of these guys were itinerant. It's unbelievable. Itinerant band directors with families that would move 1 year over here and either get tired of that band or not have any luck, move someplace else, like out to Scott City. $40 a month during the Depression was all they could scrape together to have a band director. So he learned how to roll cigars at a regional, and he learned how to make violins. The family still has one of his violins. The longest tenure that we've had in modern day history, of course, has been Curtis Cook, and he was here 30 years. After some of the rest of us did 7 years, 10 years, so forth. So I can't get all the words in. I had the neatest little thing about getting ready for the concert. And you look, after the concert, the boys are going to get to go over to Allen's drugstore and have a center. That's how they got paid, going someplace to do the treat. And if you look real close, you can see that electric light bulb over there. Now that's run by electricity. Not just a fad, it ain't going to last. That's what they thought. So you kind of have to put yourself, you got to picture yourself back in that era. Realizing there were empty lots across from the town square. We've had 2 courthouses. They had the Balloon Ascension down by where Charlie's Cafe is. And the bicycle shop, that was an open field. That's where they did the Balloon Ascension, was down there. So I tried to bring out, and it was the Arkansas River Valley. It was flat prairie. It was short grass, because the tall grass was on east of us somewhere else, the line. And a few little tidbits I try to bring out that are historic things that actually did happen. So in the trip out to the farmyard, that's true, that was found in a German newspaper by Karen Newport. I took a little license with it here and there, but basically that did happen. So all the incidences and all the little tales I try to tell you, 99% of it is true. I got a whole stack of newspaper clippings and paper and all sorts of stuff. Anyway, if you have any questions, I can maybe answer them. Have anything to say about
Have you done any research on KDGB times?
KDGB?
Radio station.
No, we're about 65 years old.
We used to have,
My dad used to play on radio.
Yeah,
we used to have people play.
yeah, people play live.
Yeah. Sam did.
Yeah, and yeah, we was some fine musicians back in those days too. But we do lose track of names, we lose track of places. Who would believe that Frederick, Kansas, was that town band? The sad thing is, I'm just as guilty. When I started teaching here, I come over from Dorrance. While at Dorrance, a fellow come to me from Wilson and said, I still have Sousa band uniform because I used to play with the Sousa band. Didn't once take time to really drill him or really talk about him. All I've been able to pick up is what other people have written, and sometimes it's not always the same. And I had a boy in band, played trombone. He brought me his grandpa's old valve trombone. Played with the valve. He'd never been able to fix it. It was so grody and old. But his granddad had played in the Dorrance Town Band. Never once got a chance to talk to him about, well, what was it like to play in that town band. And Domingo Scotti, when I came here in '58, Jim Sander was leaving. He showed me around the school and he said, now there's going to be an older gentleman in town. Older. An older gentleman in town is going to come up and he's going to want to direct. And he's written some music and some marches, and here's one in the file that says, dedicated to my friend Jim Sander. Later I got the same piece, but Sander was scratched out. He couldn't erase ink, he had to scratch it out. Had my name on it. Same march. But he called me up to the Elks. He's a lifetime member of the Elks. Yeah, the Eagles, I'm sorry. The Eagles. We went up on the couch and he wanted to tell me about how I should handle the boys in the band. Not much else, and I would listen to him. But never once sat down with him again to really talk about, well, where'd you come from? Milan, Italy. Well, how'd you get to America? Stowed away on a ship and went to Mexico. Well, how did you get up here? Oh, I was in Brackettville and saw an ad in the paper for a band director at Larney. And then when our job opened up here, by that time he was at Elmwood, and then he came here and stayed here about 15, 17 years. Still has relatives in town. But I never once sat down and talked to him about it. What was it like when he was in the Army, and when he was fighting down in Mexico. He became such good with El Presidente that he had you write a march for him, and blah, blah, and all that. Wilbur Sherrard's grandson was in band, Val Lindholm. That's the Lindholm family, Archie Lindholm, and Sue and Sundahl. Oh, no, I lost her name there. Nancy Lindholm Sundahl, that's her grandpa. Val said, well, my grandpa's in town. He'd like to, he was retired by then, started in Nebraska. When he got here, by that time he was retired, and he said he'd like to come here to the band. Okay, yeah, go ahead. We played, and we chit-chatted a little bit, and then he left. And I didn't once say, come back here, I want to ask you about what it was like at Roosevelt, and Roosevelt was the band, it was the high school, and what did you do, and how did you do it, and what's your background? Not realizing that he had been in Binkelman, Nebraska, the very same time that Domingo Scotti was in Binkelman, Nebraska. Except I think they were like that. And that continued while they were here. Mary Lou Freiberger's father, John Taft, he and a couple of guys started the drum and bugle corps. So don't be misled by other things you might hear. But they're the ones that started the drum and bugle corps. Now at St. Rose, and finally John Taft got them all trained. They were ready to go, about 1947, they were ready to go to Pratt for the American Legion State Convention, and he died. He never got to see the fruition of what he and the other guys had helped do. Anyway, that's it. Any questions? Well, thank you very much, yeah.
Did you ever play in a polka band?
Oh, yes, oh Lord, my leg hurts just to think about it. Yeah. Now, go to Czech Festival days or any of those, and there's some good polka bands. They just play the heck out of them. No, I've played polka bands and just get worn out. Not too many, really. And some of them still try to play in town bands and city bands. Well, you have a real neat, situation out here with, the things you do on this snapshot. I think it's a real great idea. And, like I've told people, I've talked to 6. I've done programs for 60, I've done programs for 600, I've performed with 6,000. So it makes no difference, I still have fun doing it. And you don't know it, but I'm sorry I left a few things out once in a while. But that's the way it is, you wouldn't realize it. After our first marching event, in that 1875, and they had the 4th of July celebration. We rehearsed out at Fred Miller's farm because he had a still in the back of the barn. And we got a lot more accomplished out there than rehearsing downtown in the town hall, which at that time was on Main Street somewhere. I got all these stories that back up where buildings were at. It's astonishing, one year under Epperson, 1901 or 1906, they had what they called band notes in the paper. And I got a list of band boys, because they'd list them, say, Ed Kidder went home last night because we weren't playing his favorite song on trombone. Or so-and-so was back trying out his new ebony drumsticks on one of them new rudiments and making so much noise we thought it was firecrackers. We all dove out the window and went through the front door and about run over Mr. Epperson, Professor Epperson. Little anecdotes like that showed up all year. It was amazing. So that's how you come across so much of this stuff. And try to use it. We were written up that first time, our first appearance must have been good because we proclaimed in the newspaper an A1 silver coronet band, destined to be the best band in the land. Of course, every newspaper said that about every good time band they had. They were the best band in the land. Okay?
Thank you.
I tried to find out. I sacrificed my notes to those old newspaper stuff. I always try to get through it without having to use it, so I can keep it straight in my head. So you ain't no town if you haven't got a band.
Let me add, Joe,
Yeah.
to take a little permission here, is that our own band and choir, in combination, Monday night, will be playing here at the new and improved Fine Arts
Good
Auditorium.
advertisement, you bet.
So if you haven't seen the new auditorium, which we just spent $650,000 to renovate it, and still working on it, this is a good time. And Monday night we have the sneak preview concert, which has 5 or 6 different groups,
Right.
vocal, instrumental, combination, what have you. I take it you're playing with the Prairie
Yeah.
Woods Band.
And we were afraid it was gonna be outside.
Yeah, we weren't sure yet because we're still working on the auditorium, but you don't have to bring your own chairs. We got
That's
the
right,
chairs.
that's right.
7:30 Monday night, and if you want to pay for it, you can give me $1, but if you go there yourself, it's free.
That's right. Does this close out this series then of snapshots?
No, Rick Beeler's going to do,
Oh, you have the.
present
yeah.
as Carl Menninger,
Yeah, Carl.
which should be fun.
Yeah, we were just talking over here about, not the same deal, but Osawatomie, Kansas, at the sanitarium, was the first that we know of, at least in the state, maybe in the nation, that used music as a therapy device. They had a band. And the patients would dress up and on whatever day it would be, Sunday or what afternoon, would sit out on the lawn and play band concert, and the citizens in the area would come in and listen. So I guess you're supposed to dive into this stuff.
Yes, help yourselves.
Do you want to turn this
And
off?
it looks good, because I just did a funeral, and I didn't get to stay.
Coyle, do you know how to?
Dinner,
turn
so-
I don't know how to turn it off.